Ever walk past a bank and, like wonder what's really going on behind those big fancy doors?
Mm-hmm.
Today we're going beyond the marble in the vaults, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going deep on something most people only hear about in hushed tones.
Oh, yeah.
Bank examinations.
Bank exams, yep.
You, our listeners, you provided us with the FDIC's own guidebook to this kind of mysterious world.
Right.
Don't worry, we'll be your explorers, your guides. We'll cut through the jargon. We'll get to the good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And before we get into all that, why should you care about bank exams?
Yeah, what?
It's not just people with those green visors, hunched over calculators, adding things up in dimly lit rooms.
Yeah, right.
This is about your confidence in the entire system.
Yeah.
Think about it. You deposit your hard-earned money.
Your paycheck.
That money gets loaned out. The economy hums along. It keeps moving.
My paycheck. It all works together.
The FDIC is making sure that whole cycle stays healthy.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like a financial ecosystem.
Okay.
And the FDIC's job, in part, is to make sure nobody's, dumping toxic waste into the river, so to speak.
Okay.
Because if people lose faith in banks, the whole system starts to crumble.
Okay. That's a visual I can get behind.
Yeah.
So how do they do it? How does the FDIC actually examine a bank? It's not like they just show up with calculators and just start adding things up. Right?
Well, I mean, there is some addition involved, right?
Right.
But you're right. It's way, way more complex than that. The FDIC uses something called URRs, the Uniform Financial Institutions Rating System.
Okay.
But it's better known by its, I think, much catchier nickname, CAMELS.
Camels.
CAMELS, yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What makes this system so special?
So imagine a camel, right?
Okay.
With 6 humps.
Okay, 6 humps.
Each hump represents a crucial aspect of a bank's health. We're talking capital adequacy, asset quality, management, earnings, liquidity, and sensitivity to market risk.
Got it.
Examiners grade each area on a scale of 1 to 5.
Okay.
1 being, the best, the gold star.
Yeah.
5 being, well, let's just say you don't want to be a 5.
So it's like a report card for banks.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
A report card.
Except instead of getting sent home to your parents, a bad grade could mean serious consequences for the bank, for its customers.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Consequences, yeah. And let's take asset quality, for example.
Okay.
A bank that scores poorly there, what that might mean is they're making loans to borrowers who are unlikely to repay.
Risky loans.
Risky loans. Think subprime mortgages back in the 2000s.
All right.
Not a recipe for stability.
Not at all. So examiners are looking for those red flags.
Red flags, yeah.
Those signs that a bank might be, taking on too much risk, maybe getting a little,
Out of control, yeah.
out of control. Yeah. But it's not just about ticking boxes on a checklist,
Yeah.
right?
No, absolutely not. The FDIC manual that you provided, it really emphasizes that examiners, they really need to understand the bank's risk appetite.
Okay.
How much risk are they comfortable taking on?
Right.
And how well are they managing that risk?
Okay.
It's about evaluating the bank's culture,
I see.
their decision making.
So it sounds like they're really trying to get inside the minds of the banks, the management team.
Yeah.
What are some things that would make an examiner worried about a bank's management?
Well, there are a bunch of things.
Okay.
For example, do they have a strong board of directors?
Okay.
Providing oversight?
Right.
Are they just reacting to problems as they come up?
Okay.
Or are they proactive in identifying and mitigating risk?
Right. Getting ahead of it.
Yeah, getting ahead of it. Is there a plan for who steps in if a key executive leaves?
Oh, I see.
It's about making sure the bank is well run from the top down.
So a bank could have a stellar, capital position, squeaky clean loan portfolio.
Right.
But if the management is incompetent,
Right.
or even worse,
Yeah.
that's a huge red flag, isn't it?
Huge. Yeah.
It's building a beautiful house on a foundation of sand.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And it highlights why this manual really emphasizes that human element of bank examinations.
Right.
You can have all the rules and regulations in the world, but ultimately it comes down to the people making the decisions.
That's true. Now, that's something I bet most people don't realize about bank exams, that it's not just about numbers, it's about people and judgment.
Read judgment, yeah.
So how often are these deep dives into a bank's soul, so to speak, taking place?
So the FDIC says that every insured state non-member bank has to have a full scope examination at least every 18 months.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
18 months. That's way more often than I would have guessed.
It might seem like a lot, but, we're talking about maintaining the integrity of the entire financial system.
Right, right.
And keep in mind, some banks are examined even more frequently.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Based on their size, their complexity, if they've had issues in the past.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like going to the doctor. If you've got a clean bill of health, you might only need a checkup every year or two. But if you're dealing with, some chronic conditions.
You're going to be seeing your doctor more often.
Right, exactly.
And just like your health, early detection is key when it comes to banking.
This is fascinating. We're getting a real insider's look at how the FDIC works to keep our financial system humming along. But before we delve further into the nitty-gritty of those CAMELS ratings, let's take a step back. Let's consider the bigger picture. We'll be right back. We're back, and, it's kind of amazing when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
This whole system, working behind the scenes to keep our money safe.
Right.
Keep the economy stable.
Working hard.
Working hard. But it also feels like things change so fast these days.
They do.
Is the FDIC really equipped to handle all the new stuff that's popping up in the financial world all the time?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question these days, isn't it?
Right.
And it's something the FDIC grapples with constantly, how do
Yeah.
we keep up?
Yeah.
And it goes back to that point about examiners needing to understand a bank's risk appetite.
Right.
That's, I think, more important than ever.
Because it's not like things stay the same for very long.
No.
New financial products are always coming out, new technologies.
Constantly changing, yeah.
How can examiners possibly keep up?
Well, this manual that you shared, it actually gives some hints at how they're trying to do just that.
Right.
It emphasizes that examiners aren't just looking at historical data.
Okay.
They're looking ahead.
Looking ahead.
They call it off-site analysis. Think of it as like intelligence gathering, but for bank regulators.
Intelligence gathering. Okay, now that sounds intense.
Yeah.
Are we talking like bank examiners in trench coats, reading the Wall Street Journal in like shadowy cafes?
Well, maybe not trench coats,
Okay.
but you're getting the idea.
Okay.
Examiners they're looking at a wide range of factors to try to get a sense of the bigger picture.
Okay.
Economic trends, new regulations, even media reports.
Interesting.
Because a bank might, on paper, everything looks great.
Right.
But if they're like super heavily invested in a sector that's about to totally tank,
Uh-oh.
that's trouble.
That's trouble brewing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about like connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots.
Seeing how those external forces could end up impacting a bank, even if their internal controls all look good, in isolation.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all connected.
Wow. So we've got examiners like sizing up management teams. We've got them digging into loan portfolios, and they're like playing financial detective, trying to anticipate future risks. That's a lot of responsibility.
It's a big job.
Yeah.
And it's not a solo mission either.
Okay.
The FDIC works really closely with other regulators.
Okay.
At the state level, at the federal level.
I see.
Sharing information, they'll, coordinate examinations, provide support to each other,
Wow.
just to make sure that, that banks are operating safely and soundly.
So it's a team effort.
It is, very much so. Yeah,
Yeah.
think of it as like,
Okay.
a financial first responder network. Each agency has its own area of expertise,
Right.
but they all work together to protect the overall system.
That's reassuring, actually. But even with all this coordination, all this expertise, there must be times when, things slip through the cracks.
Sure.
I mean, we've seen it happen. The '08 financial crisis, right?
Yeah.
That's a prime example, I think.
Yeah, and you're right, no system is perfect.
Right.
And 2008 was a really stark reminder that regulators have to constantly be evolving,
Sure.
adapting to new threats, asking themselves tough questions.
Right.
Are the tools that we have, are they still effective?
Right. So it's this constant game of cat and mouse
Yeah.
between the regulators and those who are maybe trying to exploit weaknesses in the system.
Yeah. It is, in a way, yeah. But it's also about anticipating new challenges
Okay.
before they even really arise, right? So, for example,
Right.
the rise of fintech cryptocurrency.
That's a whole other thing.
It poses like a whole new set of questions for bank regulators.
That's right. We haven't even touched on things like online banking,
Mhm.
mobile payments, all the crypto exchanges popping up left and right.
It's a lot.
How does the FDIC even begin to wrap their heads around all of that?
It's a challenge, no doubt.
Yeah.
And it requires a willingness to really embrace new technologies,
Sure.
try to understand how they might impact the financial system.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember at the end of the day, like, the fundamental principles of banking regulation still apply.
Right.
Ensuring safety, soundness, fairness.
Okay, so, like, while the players and the playing field might change,
Right.
the rules of the game are relatively constant.
The rules of the game stay the same, yeah.
Mhm.
Whether it's, a brick and mortar bank on Main Street
Right.
or some digital-only platform
Okay.
operating in the cloud, the FDIC is focused on making sure that they are managing risk, that they're protecting customers, and that they're operating within the law.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. We've thrown a lot of big picture ideas at our listener today.
We have, yeah.
Let's bring it back down to earth a little bit.
Okay.
We've talked about these CAMELS ratings, but like, what do they really mean in practice?
Yeah.
Let's unpack each one.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's unpack these CAMELS ratings.
Okay.
Picture this. Okay.
All right.
We are bank examiners. We've got our magnifying glass in hand, right?
Okay.
Ready to give this metaphorical camel a very thorough checkup.
I love it. And there's no better place to start than with C, capital adequacy.
Okay.
This is the foundation, right?
No,
Making sure the bank has enough cushion
Okay.
to, absorb potential losses. Think of it like a rainy day fund.
So if a borrower defaults on a loan, the bank isn't left high and dry.
Exactly. Yeah. We're talking about the bank's ability to kind of withstand those financial shocks.
Okay.
And examiners, they're scrutinizing capital ratios, right?
Okay.
These are the measures of the bank's own money against all the assets that it's holding, especially the riskier ones.
Okay.
A healthy ratio means they're not overexposed. Right.
That makes sense. You don't want to build a skyscraper on a foundation that's meant for a bungalow.
Exactly, yeah.
But a bank needs more than just capital.
Of course. Yeah.
What about the A in CAMELS? Asset quality.
Ah, yes. Asset quality. This is where we put on our detective hats.
Okay.
We dig into the bank's loan portfolio.
Right.
Remember those subprime mortgages we were talking about?
Yeah.
Prime example of what not to do.
Right.
Examiners they're on the lookout for loans that were made to borrowers who might struggle to repay.
Makes sense.
Concentrations of loans in industries that are really volatile. Basically anything that, spells potential trouble down the road.
Right. So they're assessing the quality of the bank's lending decisions.
Yeah.
Making sure that they're not taking on too much risk. It's about being responsible with people's money.
It is. It is very much so. And it's not just about the individual loans. It's
Right.
about the whole portfolio, right?
Okay.
So a bank could have a few loans that are a little shapy, but if those are balanced out by a lot of really solid loans, that's less worrisome than a bank that has all of its eggs in one very, very fragile basket.
Diversification.
Diversification.
It's key, just like in your own, investment portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, on to M management. We've touched on this before, but how do examiners actually evaluate something as subjective as management quality?
That's a great question, and it's true. It is subjective, but it's not just like examiners are, making wild guesses.
Right.
They're looking for, those red flags, right?
Okay.
Is there high turnover in key positions? A lack of experience on the board of directors, a history of regulatory violations.
I see.
They want to see a team at the helm, at the top,
Right.
that's competent, that's ethical, and is steering the ship in the right direction.
Right. So it's like the captain of a ship, right?
Exactly.
You want somebody who's experienced, who can, steer you through those rough waters.
Yeah.
And speaking of, navigating those waters, that brings us to e-earnings. Banks need to make money.
They do.
What are the examiners looking for there?
So it's not just about making money. It's about how they're making money, right? Is it sustainable?
Right.
Are they relying on risky, short-term bets?
Correct.
Or do they have a more diversified income stream, something with a proven track record?
Right.
Because remember, consistent, reliable earnings, that's what gives a bank that long-term stability.
So no get-rich-quick schemes in the banking world.
Not if you want to stay in business, no.
Right. Right. Now, you mentioned rough seas a minute ago.
Yes.
That brings us perfectly to the next letter, L, liquidity.
Liquidity, perhaps the most important.
Right. That sounds pretty crucial for, weathering a storm.
Oh, it's essential.
Yeah.
Liquidity is all about a bank's ability to meet its financial obligations. as they come due, without having to resort to fire sales or even worse, defaulting on their obligations.
Right.
Think of it as, the financial equivalent of making sure you've got enough cash on hand to cover your bills.
Right, because even a bank that's profitable can run into trouble if they just can't access cash when they need it.
Exactly.
Right, like if everyone suddenly tries to take their money out at the same time.
That's right. That's the classic bank run.
Right, right.
Examiners, they're assessing things like the bank's loan to deposit ratio,
Okay.
their access to emergency funding sources,
Right.
making sure there are enough lifeboats on board, so to speak.
Exactly, exactly. You don't want to be caught in a financial hurricane without a life vest.
You don't.
Okay, last but not least, S, sensitivity to market risk.
Yeah.
This one sounds a bit more, I don't know, sophisticated.
Yeah, you could say that. It's a little more
Nuanced.
nuanced. Yeah, nuanced. It encompasses a lot of factors, but I think essentially it boils down to this.
Yeah.
How would this bank fare? How would they do if the world suddenly threw them a curveball?
Okay.
We're talking about, interest rate hikes, recessions, global pandemics, things like that.
So examiners are looking at the bank's exposure to things that are totally outside of their control.
Yeah.
Those external factors that can just, rock the boat, even if internally everything looks good.
That's exactly right. They're looking at the bank's investments, their exposure to different currencies, their overall risk management strategy. It's about understanding how adaptable they are in a world that's constantly changing.
Wow, that's a lot to consider.
It is.
It's like they're, piecing together this giant jigsaw puzzle, looking for any missing pieces.
Right.
Or potential weaknesses.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, it's not just about finding problems. It's about working with the banks to try to address those weaknesses.
Okay.
To create a system that's more resilient, that works for everybody.
So it's a partnership in a way, right?
Yeah.
The FDIC and banks working together to, keep our money safe, keep the economy humming along.
That's right. That's right. And it's a process that's never finished. It's constantly evolving.
Right.
And it requires both sides to, adapt to new challenges, to learn from past mistakes.
Well, there you have it. A crash course in camels.
That's right.
And the fascinating world of bank examinations. It is complex.
It is.
It's constantly evolving.
Always changing.
And it's absolutely crucial to, our financial well-being.
And remember that FDIC manual you shared? That's just like the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
There's this whole universe of, financial regulations, risk assessments, economic analysis. All of this is going on behind the scenes all the time.
Right.
Working to keep our money safe, keep the economy running smoothly.
It's kind of impressive and a little bit awe-inspiring, actually.
It is.
That all of this is happening and, most of us have no idea.
Right. We take it for granted.
We do. Well, I for one, I'm not going to take it for granted anymore.
Good.
So, next time you walk past a bank, maybe take a moment to appreciate the unseen forces that are working to keep our financial system stable. It's a team effort, for sure.
It is. It involves regulators. It involves the bankers themselves.
Yeah.
And yes, even curious listeners like you.
That's right. We all have a role to play.
That's something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of bank examinations. Until next time, stay curious.